My name is Mark Stevenson. I work with the Highlands Ranch Historical Society, and we are here today on Wednesday, January 24th, 2018, at my home in Highlands Ranch, conducting an oral history with you. So tell me a little bit about who you are.
Okay, I'm Gary Dani. I moved out here in 1981. My brother was a senior executive with Mission Viejo, California. I moved out here in '78 when they first bought the property to start developing it. With about
Did you move here at that time too?
No. My story is after that, I was in banking back in Michigan, and I came out here on vacation in July of '81. And my brother, they had a
With a pregnant wife.
With a pregnant wife. And they had a picnic. The company picnic was at the mansion, the front of the mansion there. And my brother arranged it. I met with a guy by the name of Joe Lamberta and Joe Blake at the picnic. Had some beers with them, talked to them, and so at the end of the picnic, Joe Blake said, "You know, you want to work for us as manager of production control." This is July of '81. Nothing was built in the ranch.
This was because at that point, Mission Viejo, in addition to building the infrastructure of the community, was also the exclusive home builder.
Right. Yeah, Phil Egan was in charge of building.
So you're going to be production control of the houses?
Yeah,
primarily?
All the building. That was actually
even the commercial building.
Even the commercial. And the only commercial building at the time was Northridge School. That was a big deal. That was behind schedule, and I was in charge of getting that going. So I was manager of production control. I put the schedule together, how many homes we wanted to sell, and then I met with all the heads of the department every week to see where we're at. Because you had to have the building. You have to have the marketing, you have to have the land development, and all these things have to coordinate. So at the certain point in starting a house, you have a piece of land, and you have the guys developing the plans for the house, architectural plans, and they want to meet at this point to start building, and then from there on you follow the schedule, and then you want to sell the homes until you want to make sure the home's done when you sell them. So
did you have that kind of background?
No, I didn't. I was in banking. I was actually in banking for 8 years before that, before moving out here. But the only reason I got the job, to be quite honest with you, is probably because of my brother, who set all this up.
That's okay.
At the end of the deal, they offered me a job, and my wife and I stood on the front steps of the mansion. Nothing was built out here yet. It was about 8 o'clock at night. The sun was going down. Beautiful sunset. It was in July. And she's pregnant with my daughter.
This is your wife,
Carol. She's pregnant with my daughter, Jenny. And she's the baby was born in October, so she was 6 months pregnant. And we sit in front, I had a really good job. I was in banking and being groomed to be president of a bank back in Michigan. And we sat and go, let's move to Colorado.
So you did.
We stood in the front steps of the mansion, and so I said, I'm back to Joe Blake and said, yeah, that sounds like a good deal.
So when you sold your house in Michigan?
Sold my house in Michigan. I moved out here at the beginning of August to start the job. And
where did you live initially?
Well, I lived with my brother until my house was done. I was manager of production control, so I had my house done in September. And
that must have been already underway.
Yeah, it was just it was underway. They were starting to build out here. But anyway, my house was done in September. I had my furniture coming from Michigan, and they didn't want an employee to be the first one to close on the ranch and be the first resident of Highlands Ranch, because they bought the steer that year. They bought the steer that year from the Douglas County deal. And
tell us about that.
Well, they cut up the steer and gave it to Scott family, who were the official first family of Highlands Ranch.
And this was Phil and Kay Scott.
Right, and so they got the steer. They didn't want to give that to an employee because they go, wow, how's that going to look?
By the way, there's a picture in one of the heralds here of the steer.
Is there? I didn't realize that.
With the Scotts.
Yeah, okay. But they got the steer and they got the meat and all that. But what happened is the Scott family, they were supposed to close. I had my furniture coming in September 27th.
Now, he worked for one of the subcontractors.
He did, and actually worked for Tweed Kimball. Scott was a wrangler when he was a teenager for Tweed Kimball. He grew up in Sedalia. Very interesting story. But anyway, he worked for the contractors putting the pipes in. But so anyway, my furniture was coming from Michigan on the 27th, and he was supposed to close on the 25th. But someone stole the carpet in his house, in his family room, and the bank wouldn't let them close because the house wasn't finished.
So
we
they
had to
wouldn't get a
postpone it a week.
certificate of occupancy without that?
Exactly. So he
Yeah.
couldn't close. So it ended up, my furniture came, and Mission Vale, my house was all done. Mission Vale said, okay, you can move in with your furniture, but we can't let you close. So I actually moved in my house about 3 or 4 days before Scott, and then I closed about 3 days after Scott closed in my house. It's kind of a funny story. But
You also have the claim with you and your wife of having the first child born in
yeah, that was the first baby born in Highlands Ranch.
In
My daughter
Highlands
Jennifer,
Ranch.
she was
Yeah.
born on
When
October
did
18th,
October 18th.
1981.
Well, you were on a fast track.
Yeah, the fast track. She was early. She was 2 weeks early, and I worked for Mission Vale Company at the time. And I'm not sure if you know, Jim Tetford's daughter had the second baby. She was 3 days, the Willett family.
This was Diane?
No, Katie, what was his daughter's name? His wife. It was Katie Willett, was the baby born.
Mm-hmm.
Scott and the Willets. Anyway, they were born 3 days after Jennifer, and she was late. And Jim Teffer walked into my office, probably a couple days after. He said, gave me a stern look like this. You beat me. And I thought, boy, I'm in trouble with this guy because he could really, I didn't know him that well, you know. And he's president of the company. I'm just a little guy type of guy. Okay. And then he started laughing. So, well, you beat me, first baby born on the ranch.
Okay, well, let's talk about the first office that the Mission people had that you knew about. Where was it?
Oh, it was in Inverness, on the Inverness golf course. There was an office over there, and I could look right out my office over there at the time and look at the golf course. And
how many employees were there at the time?
I'd venture a couple hundred, you know, the builders and all that. Phil Egan was in charge of building at the time, and they had a couple hundred people going. You know, we had when I was doing production control type of deal, where I was putting numbers together for Mission Vale, Philip Morris, we called it Red Book. Numbers, we had our projections, we had Red Book. Red Book was supposed to be conservative. And we were telling Mission Vale we're going to do 1,300 to 1,000. That was the Red Book. That was the conservative number. And our number was 1,700 homes a year. So they had to staff up for that. And that's what they thought they were going to do. Then the economy went bad, and we only did 300 homes the first year.
Gary, explain the relationship with Mission Viejo and Philip Morris.
Well, Philip Morris actually bought Mission Vale Company back in 1973, and Jim Teffer was a part of that. He was one of the principals, and they got Philip Morris stock.
Mission Viejo started in the mid-'60s in California.
Right, exactly. They were the biggest, one of the biggest mover of dirt in the United States at the time. It was a big deal out there. And very nice. They did a beautiful job in developing that. And Jack Robb was the engineer, and Jack Robb came out here too. But anyway, Philip Morris bought them in '73, and they got their foot wet out here in Aurora in '73 or '74. They actually started development in Aurora over there to see how they liked Colorado. And then in 1978, and everybody won't go into that story because it's been told many times, Mission Viejo bought the Phelps Ranch here and started developing it from Marvin Davis, who I used to work for. When I left Mission Viejo Company and went back into banking, I worked for Marvin Davis. So
when was that?
I left in '82.
Late 80s?
No, I left in '82 yet. The handwriting was on the wall. They didn't need as many people as they needed out here. And
because of the recession?
The recession, yeah. They weren't selling near as many homes they were planning on. So they called me up one day at a banking group and said, "Do you want to work at Metro National Bank?" I went down there and interviewed. So I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." Because I said, and short-lived. And actually, they had a layoff of a bunch of people about 4 months after I left. They had a big layoff. They just weren't building that many homes.
The layoff here at Mission Viejo.
Yeah, Mission Viejo had come in and had a big layoff. So anyway, that was the story.
Well, that's the history of Colorado. It's an up or down type state.
And that recession lasted from about '82 until, if you bought a house here in 1982, '83, you didn't get that price back on your house until about 1992. They went down in value right after that.
I can remember a lot about the oil industry in particular, that it was very go-go in the late 70s, and they were pushing everyone's salaries up in competition for their hiring things, and then in the early 80s it crashed.
Yeah, well, the prices went down.
Through the mid-80s,
it
crashed significantly.
It was really bad. All the banks went out of business. All you had Colorado National Bank.
So you had guys like Hickenlooper who, used to be in the oil and gas business, form his brew pub.
Yeah, all these, a lot of engineers.
They found other careers.
The only reason Highlands Ranch even sold as many homes as they did is Martin Marietta was hiring. And so I bet you 30% of the homes, maybe even higher, of the homes in Highlands Ranch were Martin Marietta employees.
Yeah.
There weren't any oil engineers or anything like that moving in here.
Which eventually became Lockheed.
Lockheed, right, exactly. Yeah. So that was their only reasons the ranch sold any home, but they weren't selling near as many homes as they wanted to.
That's good. Well, let's transition into one of the first major activities that might have come from the influence of Mission Viejo in California. You and others moved in the late summer, early fall of '81.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, like at Mission Viejo in California, an activities committee was organized.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, in October of '81, late October, our cook came and said, let's start an activities committee. And I knew our cook really well because I worked with him. And so I was one of the first guys he talked to. So I talked to my neighbors and I talked to a bunch of people.
What was Art's responsibility at that point?
Art was ranch, and he was in charge of the activities committee from day one until they left around 1990, somewhere around in that. That was a big deal. That was his big deal. We're always working on events. We had tons of events going on to bring that community together, this community spirit, and they were fun deals. But with the first meeting, we probably had about 20 people there, and the first meeting was to set up Santa's arrival. And actually, Santa's arrival was the Sunday after Thanksgiving. Was always that day in 1981. And so
that was modeled after what had happened in California.
Very modeled after what happened in California.
Mm-hmm.
Santa's arrival. What happened is all the homeowners decorated all the lights on the streets. Broadway. We only had Broadway on the streets. We only had Broadway with the big tall trees on it. We got out there cold. I still remember, it was very cold, and we decorated all those trees. Got up on 14-foot ladders and put bulbs all over. And we had tons. Mission Vale paid for everything. You know, money was not an option. It was just a help type of deal. So we put that all together. My neighbor and his pictures in here, Tom Brennan, we built the first mailbox, and they still use that mailbox today. I saw it out there this year next to Santa's house. We put a mailbox. We built a mailbox.
Letters to Santa.
Letters to Santa. My kids, and they're all the kids here. And there was a lady here, Chris Valenti, was a very good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine today. She lived here in the ranch, and she knew these kids. So the kids would put the letters in there, and then she'd write back and say, "Yeah, Santa realized that you lost your tooth last month, and you're not feeling too good, or you broke your leg during the time." And the kids are going crazy because they got these letters from Santa, and they said, "How does Santa Claus know all that?" So what happened is we did all this work. We put it all together, the activities committee, and then we had Santa's arrival, came in a fire truck, and Art Cook got on his two-way telephone talking to Santa and directed them here to Highlands Ranch, and you're almost here, Santa. Oh, you're lost. We're going to turn the lights on for you so you can see where you're going. And we turned all the lights on, and the kids went crazy. We're singing songs at the same time. Kids just went crazy.
How big was the community that
we probably had maybe
season?
60 people out there for the first Santa's arrival. I think they, at that time, they probably had about 30 hounds sold at most. But everybody, 90% of the people, maybe 95% of the people that lived here at the time were out there at that ceremony. And boy, what a feeling. And then the kids are going crazy. And so we turn on the lights, and then Santa Claus, the fire truck starts going and turns the corner, and the kids. So it was a neat event.
Backing up just a little bit, do you have any recollection of activities at Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, what happened is
1981.
Mary Putnam, who was a neighbor of mine, and she was in charge of activities and rec centers and everything at Highlands Ranch.
She had come from
California, and she was a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. Right? She was like a sister to me for many, many years. But she was a neighbor of mine, and anyway, where was I going with this story?
Well, I was asking about Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. Okay, Thanksgiving. Mary Putnam, Art Cook, Jeff Kappas. All dressed up. And Mary Putnam was the pilgrim, the lady, handing the ticket. Jeff Kappas and Art Cook. Art Cook was a turkey, if I'm not mistaken. And Jeff Kappas was dressed up in some kind of Puritan outfit too, and they went to, I think they had 35 homes in the ranch, and they gave a Christmas turkey to everybody in the ranch. They knocked on the door, there's Mary putting them with her, they've got a picture of it in here, as a matter of fact, in your Highlands Ranch Reporter, which is really neat. And
How was
they gave her the
that?
turkey.
You were a homeowner then.
Oh, it was really neat. I mean, the feeling you had in living in Highlands Ranch in the beginning was unbelievable. I drove the other side of County Line Road, and they just had a little road in front of Wilmore. Broadway wasn't done yet. They had a little asphalt road off the County Line, nothing out here at all. There was a family of antelope, if you can believe it, right on the corner of Broadway and County Line that you drove by. And I drive down County Line Road, and they had night the sun was going down, I saw all these off the County Line Road, all these cattle, and you see the silhouette of the cattle. Then you're driving the ranch, and it's like you left the world behind you. You're driving into your private ranch. That's the feeling you got. Everybody knew each other, everybody cared for each other. It was just a fun deal. And you drove in the Highlands Ranch and you had your own little world. It was like it's driving like the Twilight Zone. You're driving down the road and all of a sudden you're in your own little ranch in the middle of Denver. Not in the middle of Denver, at the time where there was nothing out here. But it was a neat feeling.
Well, the first intersection, as I understand it, was Broadway and County Line.
No,
And Clark, actually.
they didn't build. Broadway didn't go in, and University didn't go in until they built C470, which was in '87. There was a little road right in front of Wilmore, and there was a picture in here. There was a post office off that little road when you first came in, and a medical, Mercy Medical, had a little building there. Matter of fact, I cut my hand one time, I had to go over there. But there's just a little 2-lane road with no stoplight or anything like that. You can. That's the only way to get in and out of the ranch. It's right in front of Wilmore. That road's long gone now.
Long before C470 was
So for many years, you had to go off the County Line Road, off that little road that they had, just a little service road.
And that was called Ranch Road?
I don't think.
I've seen some activities that have referred to it as Ranch Road.
It could be Ranch. I don't know the name of it. I'm not even sure it had a name. Ranch Road right now is the road that they put to go to Highlands Ranch Mansion.
Sure.
Which was, they put that road in, and they put gravel down. We had a big event out there. I always get off on tangents here, so maybe I shouldn't do that.
Go ahead.
Well, what happened there in 1984, we used to have New Year's Eve parties up there every year, too.
Starting when?
Oh, well, starting the first year, we had New Year's Eve, yeah. Mm-hmm. They let us do New Year. We had parties up there all the time. The mansion was like a second home. So we had a party up there, but one year we had a party, it was like '83. We used to park the cars at, in the very first year, in order to get to the ranch, the mansion, you had to go down by Colorado Boulevard down there, take a dirt road, probably Daniels Road at the time, went into County Line, and you went down, you drove down about a quarter mile, and you had to open up a gate to go into the pasture for the cows and drive down this dirt road that goes over, and they had gate rails over the streams and all that, and you have to honk your horn at the cattle to get the cattle off the road to get to the mansion. They didn't put the road from the ranch road in until about 1986. So they had to take this long way around to get back and drive actually through the cattle pasture to get to for all our parties. But it was a lot of fun. But back in the day, we had a big snowstorm the night we had our New Year's Eve party. I'm thinking around '84, somewhere around in there. And we parked cars at Northridge, and we had our Cook Suburban. We rented a couple Suburbans to take people back and forth. And the Suburbans got stuck, and we just had a real mess. So that summer, Highlands Ranch Mission Vale Company put in a gravel road, just gravel going up to the mansion, so we didn't have to go through the pasture and all that. That's kind of a neat deal.
Yeah, Jim Teffer at one point had talked about when they got possession of the mansion at one point. He remembers distinctly that the front lawn of the mansion that's now very manicured was weeds up here and cattle grazing in the front yard.
Oh yeah, no, it was a big deal.
Because that was a pasture at that point.
Beat up tennis court next to it and all that.
Yeah, beat up tennis court too.
Yeah,
that kind of went away when they did the remodel in 2011.
Yeah, they redid that whole thing. Yeah, they did it. But
that's not surprising.
It was old. It was old. But Mission Viejo, that was our second home. We had parties up there all the time. Because Mission, that was part of their deal. We had, we had Santa's arrival, and then we had the New Year's Eve party. The other parties we had, the activities committee put on. The first couple years, they had a roundup where they rounded up the cattle and actually vaccinated them and branded them and all that. That only lasted a couple years.
This was in May.
What's that?
This was in May.
Right. We call it the Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
We only did it 2 years because the smell and the kids, even my children, said, "Wow, what's going on here?" I always remember the guy from whose dad was in charge of Mission Viejo. He was the senior vice president. He started Miller Beer. Anyway, his son was out here. And he's telling me, he said, "Boy, they're going to have Rocky Mountain oysters tonight." I had no idea it was Rocky Mountain oysters.
Well, at one point, Donna Root with the finance department, did you know her later on?
Well, I actually knew her in the beginning. My brother, Donna Root, and her husband, Steve Root, at the very beginning, Steve Root was in charge of the controller, in charge of the accounting, and my brother was in charge of marketing. So my brother and Steve Root had offices together since 1978, and we used to play sports trivia. Steve Root, myself, who was it? Jim Krager. He was the CFO. We used to get together once a week, once every 2 weeks, and play sports trivia. So Steve was a very good friend. He died unexpectedly, lung cancer. But Donna's still a good friend. I still see her every once in a while.
Well, Donna helped interview Jim Teffer a few years ago.
Yeah.
And she brought with her a CD called Highlands Ranch, My Hometown.
Oh, okay.
With about 425 pictures.
Oh, wow.
From the very earliest days, building infrastructure and everyone, and through the mid '80s. And what was notable was all the pictures from parties that were held at the mansion, because it was very evident that there was a Miller Beer connection,
and
there was a Marlboro cigarette commercial. Because these pictures, everyone seemed to have a beer can in their hand.
Yeah, we had all
Miller Lite or whatever.
Art Cook had a cooler in the back of his Suburban, always loaded with beer. And we'd have our activities committee. We probably met almost every week, every 2 weeks. And we'd go out to Art Cook's truck and bring in the cooler full of Miller beer. We got all the Miller beer we wanted. In the back of the mansion, there's a little room when you came into the back door before they redid it. There was a parking lot back there, dirt and all that. And that room was full of Miller beer. But the kind of a story on the cigarettes, back in 1982 was the first July 4th celebration. We had a party in the front of the mansion again. And we did barbecue beef. We wrapped the beef up in aluminum foil. Mary Putnam was in charge of it, and our cook. So we'd wrap beef. I had the smell in my hand. We'd put rub all over it, wrapped in aluminum foil, put a wire on it. We had a 6-foot pit in the back. We put a cord of wood in. Then we burnt it, and then at night, the night before, we put the barbecue in there with the wire. And then we sat back there all night for the fire department, so we had to do that. And we put sand over the curated metal. And then the next day, about 11, 12 o'clock, we'd take that beef out and slice it up and serve it to people with barbecue, with the rolls. And that was a great deal because we always had twice as much as we wanted. So the people that worked on the event took it home with them. So I'd take a big brisket of beef home with me, and my family loved it. It was really great stuff. But yeah, we did the brisket, but that was all paid for. Mission Vale paid for all those events. But we did that. The barbecue was a trademark. We did that for every event. We had barbecue. And I can't tell you how many times I wrapped barbecue in aluminum foil. And we did it in the kitchen of the mansion. But getting back to cigarettes, we had a July 4th celebration. And Mission Vale put these little packs of cigarettes, 4 packs of cigarettes at everybody's tables. We had all kinds of children out there.
We saw some pictures.
Yeah,
it's pretty obvious that there were Marlboro cigarettes on the table and Miller beers in the hands of everyone
There's
else.
a lady, Kim Herskovitz. She was real active. She started the PTA here in Highlands Ranch. Her children were the first children in the Northridge School. She moved in about 3 weeks after we did. She lived down the street. Boy, she went to Mission Vale Company on Monday and just reamed them. She said, "Cigarettes with children? What are you guys thinking about?" Now, they only put the cigarettes out one time. But they actually had packs of cigarettes all over the place. I mean, cigarettes at every table, where you're eating, and they had packs of cigarettes there. But we got all the Miller beer we wanted. Philip Morris bought Like, L-I-K-E, Coca-Cola, and 7-Up. And so that's all you had at all our events was all those products. They got them all.
This was an outdoor-only activity, wasn't it?
What's that? The July 4th?
July event?
Yeah, July 4th, we did a bike parade, our very first bike parade. My son was in it.
No, I mean, you weren't inside the mansion.
Well, we used to go inside the mansion for all kinds of stuff, yeah. But the mansion, the different parties we had over the years was, we had July 4th, which consisted of a dunk tank and all that kind of stuff at Northridge behind the Northridge Rec Center.
So who
Lot
got dumped?
Well, we used to, Steve Zotis was one of them. Our cook was definitely in there every year. Mm-hmm. And we had a little pony rides for kids, so that was part of the July. We started off with the parade. The parade the first year had something like 30 little bikes dressed up. I think bike parade. And we said, well, we have to do a parade. We don't have anything going on. So our cook and I was in charge of that event. I was chair of the July 82 4th of July. Mm-hmm. And I used to go to July celebration. I said, let's do all this stuff, So we did it all. We brought in vendors and stuff like that, but throw the ball and different things and knock down bottles, and we had all that stuff going on. And so, but our cook was in the dunk tank. He was one of the people, everybody lined up to dunk him in. And Steve Zotis came out. He was in the dunk tank.
I'll tell you a story that Zotis told us. In one of those years, Zotis is enlisted to be a judge of the kids' bike parade.
Oh, okay.
So he's never done this before, but he's having fun doing the thing, except toward the end, where whoever won the thing, it was not won by a child whose mother was irate of why her child did not win the bike award. And she just laid into him. Yeah. And after that, he said, I don't need this grief. I'm not doing this again just for being a judge. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I don't need this level of grief.
He was in the dunk tank, too. He was a really good guy. He really did a lot for the community. He was really a personal type of guy.
So where did your activities committee get all their ideas?
Well, we did. It was just
I read through enough of the Heralds, and it seemed like
our cook had some.
There were lots.
Yeah, what we did, we had Santa's arrival, then we had New Year's Eve party, then we had the Easter egg hunt that was put on in Mary Putnam. The first Easter egg hunt, we probably didn't have more than 15 kids out there. Then we did the July 4th celebration, which was really nice. We had a bunch of stuff going on for that. We always had barbecue, for the July 4th.
Again, that was at the mansion.
Yeah, not well. We did it.
Where's the Easter egg hunt?
We had the Easter egg hunt was in Northridge Park. Well, everything happened in Northridge. If it didn't happen at the mansion, the only two places we had. And then at the mansion, then we had Highlands Ranch Days. And the Highlands Ranch Days are really fun. We did sports activities, but the biggest fun part of, and we did it for many, many years, we started in 82. We cleaned out the barns, and we had a hoedown. Mm-hmm. And all the beer you could drink, and people were just annihilated when they were done. Everything was
this
free.
Part of Highlands Ranch Days?
It was Highlands Ranch Days. That was the big deal for Highlands Ranch Days. We had a Saturday night. Saturday we did baseball games, and we had stuff with roping cattle and kind of stuff like that for the kids. And then Saturday night. So
this was the first fall, 1982.
In 82, we cleaned out.
That was the first Highlands Ranch Days.
That was the first Highlands Ranch.
That's still held in September.
No, they still, all the events we have going on today, the Activities Committee turned everything over to the HRCA in 1992. But for the first 10 years, we put them all on. All volunteer work. We had a really good group of people, and we all had fun doing it, too. Yeah. We put, the
committee got bigger over the years?
Yeah, we always had. It started off with about 20. It probably never got bigger than about 30, 35 type of deal. It was the same thing. I worked every event from October of 81 at the first meeting till we turned it over in 92. I worked every event.
Well, that's what I call a dedicated volunteer.
And then you did it for the community. The fun the children had. These events really brought the community together. July 4th, we had the fireworks. Mission Vale paid for all the fireworks. We had a band. They paid for a band out there. We had them in Northridge.
Did you do the fireworks in Northridge also?
Yeah, we did. In 82, we did fireworks, and we moved them in 85, I think, or 86, somewhere around there, because of real dry. And we caught 5 Stony Point homes on fire because they had the wooden shaped roofs. Yeah. And we had I'm out there, our cook, we had the fire deals out there, our cook and I, and we started some fires out there. It was real dry. And started fires in the field right behind Northridge Park back there, and a couple homes got caught on fire. So the fire department said, no more fireworks here, and that was it. But we had them right there. We'd have a band right at there's a little carousel there. We have a band in there, and every year we raffled off the cow. They have pieces of meat wrapped up in paper, and you bought raffle tickets. We raffled all these off. And kind of a funny story there. I learned a trick one time. If you could bend your ticket, you have a better chance of being picked. And so all of a sudden I'm at this event. I bought tons of tickets. I bent them all up before I put them in, and our cook's reading off the numbers. And I've already got like 10 pieces of meat, and our cook pulls out the ticket. He says, "This must be Gary Dani. It's bent."
Good. Yeah. Okay, Art. Yeah, you've been ahead.
So the activities committee, we put on the Highlands Ranch days. We put on Halloween. We decorated the mansion so the kids could walk through. And that night we had a party. The parties are always held in the white room of the mansion in the back with all the tile in there. Toilets are always plugging up. They had a terrible toilet problem there when we had our parties. So
they still do.
And for many years, now they got the big bathroom, obviously. Yeah. That was a big difference. But for many years, we had those parties every year, which are really fun deals. We actually, the cow barn they have there, we had it in the one of the barns on the wooden floor. We opened up the 2 doors at the end. It was the first year was just great. They had such a great time, but we had to go and clean it all out. So a bunch of us, and actually Michael Cook, who's one of our county commissioners, the first time I met her, was doing that event. She came out here with her kids, and we were cleaning out the barn with her husband and that. Yeah, but they put the hay out, and that night they had a storm come in. The hay got wet and ruined it. So we used a milking barn. In the first couple of years, the milking barn was just a dirt floor, and then we were having so much fun with this. It was an annual event to do the hoedown. That Mission Viejo came in and paved the milking barn, so we had a paved floor to do it. But we did for first 10 years, we had a hoedown every year. We had a collar, and we had all the free beer and all that stuff. Just a fun deal. It was really fun.
You know, they have reinstituted a Halloween activity at the mansion for the last 2 years.
Yeah. That's a lot of it.
Though it's an outdoor activity.
Yeah.
They have some decorations indoors.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
well, we got a
it's
coffin.
an outdoor activity.
We got a coffin one time. You have to remember, there was hardly any kids here. And it was like a country club, I told people. We had this big they had the rec center at Northridge, and they could never get kids to go to the events. So they actually call us up on the phone and say, "Hey, we got an event, bring your kids over." That's how it was back then. It was just like a country club.
Good. Let's talk about the rec center.
Okay.
When was the rec center initially built?
Well, the rec center was here when the first residents moved in. That was a promise. There's 2 things, and I worked on both those projects when I was manager of production control. One, they said they're going to be a rec center, and that was built, but it was very small. I'm not sure if you know, the original rec center only had a little room when you came in, the office, the swimming pools, and 3 tennis courts.
And later on, they added the gymnasium and everything else.
Yeah, and I was president of the Homeowners Association. We did that back in 83, 84. So the rec center was here in the beginning, and Northridge School opened up right in the beginning.
That was one of your projects.
Well, it was behind schedule on manager production control. So the principal of the school and myself were moving desks in.
That was McFarland?
Yeah. Moving desk in when people are actually painting because they're so far behind schedule on it. But the rec center was here to begin with, and then back in '83, I was a delegate in '83 for district number 2. Now they got 120 districts, if I'm not mistaken. But the Mission Viejo came to me, and they came to me with a lot of stuff for the homeowners because I knew them, and so they said, "Well, we want to build it. In addition to the rec center, you want to spearhead that." So it's okay. So me, and there was 2 of us. There was 3 delegates at the time, but 1 never came. Me and a lady by the name of Pam Ellen. And so we sent out a brochure to everybody, what you want in the rec center, a letter and all that. And it came back. We went to Mission Viejo Company. I sat down with Joe Blake. We put the financial package together. We put a limit on you couldn't raise our dues more than a certain dollar amount because some rec centers are failing and the homeowners are stuck with these big bills. So we put a really nice package that protected the homeowners, and we put in a big swimming pool, the indoor swimming pool, the gymnasium, and all that stuff went in. And Mission Viejo gave us I think it was $8 million towards it. And then we picked up a tab of about $3 million to homeowners on a loan. So it was, and at the time we started building, and actually for our 5th year reunion, which is October of 1986, we had the ribbon cutting. And my daughter, she was always invited to ribbon cuttings and the parades and all that, being first baby in Highlands
She'd be
Ranch.
about 5 years old then.
She was 5 years old, exactly. And so my daughter cut the ribbon for that in October of '86. Beautiful rec center. It was rated as the best public rec center in the United States at the time. Very nice. We had a high diving board in there, which is long gone now. Because even when I was still
Inside or outside?
Indoors,
Inside.
high diving boards. When I was still on the board of directors of Highlands Ranch, and the board of directors back then was 5 board of directors. 3 were from Mission Vale Company because they controlled everything, which is right, and then 2 outside. And so Pam, Helen, and myself were the 2 outside board members that put the rec center together. But they really listened to us. I used to meet with Joe Blake. Once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, we'd have lunch and that together, putting plans together. And what
What was Joe Blake's responsibility at that point?
He was a senior vice president in charge of probably the overall chemistry of the ranch, I'd say. Well-respected man. And he was the guy that brought everything together. He knew he was a political guy when Arapahoe College wanted to do something, whatever, Joe Blake was the guy. He was just politically connected and got Mission Vale recognized, I would say. He's got his name all over everything at Highlands Ranch. And even when we, back in 1982, I think it was, maybe 83, they had a bond election. And Joe Blake worked with it, and he came to me and said, we need to do something with the community. We have to have that bond passed. $135 million bond to build schools. Without that, because I'm not sure you knew it or not, but Mission Vale paid for Northridge $10 million. And then for 10 years.
Paid their operational costs for 10 years.
And then when that 10 years was over, they didn't have to, but they gave the money. We built Summit Elementary School. But the Mission Vale paid for it, but they had a $135 million bond election coming up for schools, capital improvements. He said, well, we got to get people out from Highlands Ranch, because the rest of Douglas County hated Highlands Ranch.
Why is that?
Well, we're just a drain on them. You know, they didn't want to pay taxes and build schools for us, and they're living out there. They hated us. I'm not sure we hated us.
Well,
they didn't want to support our growth. Here's a company, Mission Vale Company, Philip Morris, and they're going to have to put money towards our schools. It just didn't seem right to them. But anyway, so we put a phone tree together, me and a lady by the name of Kim Herskowitz, and we were advisors to the school board at the time. And anyway, we got probably 90% of the people from Highlands Ranch to vote on that bond election, and it passed by 20 votes. And so all of a sudden we got $120 million, $135 million to build schools. So that's how we built Highlands Ranch High School, Crest Hill, and we built 5 elementary schools in Highlands Ranch out of that money.
Good.
But it's just a matter of getting the people. But Joe Blake, that was his reason, getting all this stuff put together.
Gary, tell me a little bit about the housing options when you moved in. I understand there were 3 different groups.
Well, the first 2 groups were Bayfield, which was, I don't know if you're familiar with Dad Clark. It started Dad Clark and went to the street right before the Northridge Rec Center. That was Bayfield. Then they had Stony Point. Stony Point was east of the rec center, Northridge. And then they had the Groves, which was, that would be south, The Groves would be south of the Northridge Rec Center.
The rec center and eventually.
And the first homes were actually in Bayfield. Bayfield had the first homes in them, and along with the Groves. They opened up just about the same time. All those started coming on for sale, and they closed on them. The Stony Point was a couple months later. I think the first house in Stony Point was towards the end of November, maybe the beginning of November somewhere.
This is 1981.
1981. Yeah. And so the price of the homes kind of give you an idea. The Groves is going for right around $85,000 for the base house. The base house in the Bayfield area, it started off probably around $92,000. The most expensive was $99,000. That was the Whitehall. That's the house I ended up buying. And then they had the Stony Point, and they were about $110,000, somewhere around in there, for a Stony Point house.
How did those prices compare to other houses available in the area?
Oh, they're competitive, because I was looking at Ryder homes over there, and they're competitive. What you got when they first opened up, the interest rates in homes in 1981, if you could get a fixed rate loan on a house, it's unbelievable, but it was 19%.
Wow.
You can't buy much home at 19%, you know.
Yeah.
So Mission Viejo bought down with Citicorp Bank the loan. So the first owners of homes in Highlands Ranch actually got a 12.75% loan, which was a deal at the time.
Highly subsidized.
Yeah, they had to pay. They bought it down, so they bought. So the very first day, you couldn't sell any homes otherwise. And if you bought a home, you couldn't even get a fixed rate loan. Everything was a 3-year ARM. You'd have to pay 18% for a 3-year ARM. The prime rate at the time was over 22%. And to kind of give you an idea how the economy was, and that's why you couldn't sell a home. To qualify for a $100,000 home, even in today's market at 18% interest rate, you can only buy 1/3 the house that you normally could buy at a 4% or 5% interest rate at 18%. That's how bad the market was. So the interest rates are just killing the sales of Highlands Ranch. So they bought down the mortgage. And then the first homes of Highlands Ranch had a lien. Joe Blake had to work out a deal with the title company, Land Title, because there was a lawsuit that the Phipps family sold the land too cheap to Marvin Davis. Because Marvin Davis, and I won't go into the numbers on that, but he made a ton of money on
Our understanding is that the family sold for 12-13 million, and Marvin Davis sold it to Mission Viejo for 23 million.
Now 32, and I think it was 18 million. And Marvin Davis, he didn't even have to put in money. He just had a contingency to buy the property, and at the closing, he walked away. I think it was $18 million profit.
Yeah, we heard that. The story we heard was he doubled his money in 2 years.
Yeah, he didn't even have to put any money down. He just had a contingency on the property. But anyway, there was a lawsuit by the Phipps family. So the very first homeowners of Highlands Ranch had a lawsuit, and that lasted about 2 years until that was finally settled.
How did that get resolved?
They had to put up a bond in case anything happened. And if the Phipps family won that lawsuit, Mission Viejo put up a bond to protect the title company. But they were sure they're going to win it. So, in order to get title, they had to do a special arrangement. Mission Viejo put that together. So the first homes are very nice. My first home was right on Broadway. I looked over Broadway. I could see Long's Peak to Pikes Peak out of my backyard.
You had a developing family. How many bedrooms?
It was a 3-bedroom. 4-bedroom, excuse me, a 4-bedroom home.
In your development, what was the range of bedrooms at those price points?
Well, most of the things are 3 or 4 bedrooms.
3 or 4.
The groves are mostly 3-bedroom. They're smaller homes. And tri-levels were popular. I didn't like them at the time. We had a 2-level.
Do you remember the square footages?
Yeah, my home was 2,200 square feet. And I had the biggest.
So pretty good size.
Yeah, and homes then were, the Stony Points were going for about 2,500 square feet, maybe 2,600 square feet. And the groves are probably around 1,800 square feet, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
And so that was the pricing of them back then. If you had the lot premium on Broadway, I paid a $500 lot premium to be on the back of Broadway. At the time, it was beautiful. C470 wasn't in or anything along that line. The view was just spectacular. Nothing was built out here yet. The view of the mountains, it was really something.
Yeah, well, things changed.
Yeah, they did change.
Things
They did change.
At some point, the community decided to build the convenience center after Broadway was extended further south on the west side of Broadway.
Yeah, 7-Eleven. You're talking about the 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
Yeah, 7-Eleven was the first store to come in.
The commercial buildings too.
Yeah, the commercial bank, the bank building, Wells Fargo, didn't come in until a few years later. They just had that small little shopping center. There was a Conoco gas station there with a little place to put your oil when you change your oil. So I used to walk out the back of my house, taking oil down there and put it in that deal. 7-Eleven was a big deal. There's a restaurant there where the 7-Eleven was. Stories told when 7-Eleven finally closed, they never made any money on that. Initially, with the boom that was supposed to happen, the Highlands Ranch was supposed to have a big grocery store come in. That never happened. So 7-Eleven was the only store. Then the first grocery store, we used to have to go to King Soopers over there on University and Dry Creek by Arapahoe High School. And the only closest gas station was down there at Broadway, the other side of Arapahoe Road. Though they had the one, the Conoco there too. But that was that shopping center. And then I think it was about 5 years later they built the Wells Fargo Bank building. And then the other
There's
first,
an early library there too.
and then the other first development, they had La Petite. It was a little school for children. That's by where the Metro District building is now. There wasn't a Metro
like a daycare.
The daycare center there was called La Petite. My children went to that. So that's the only buildings at the ranch at the time, commercial buildings, was that convenience center.
Further down on Broadway, when did the churches get added?
Churches didn't get added till probably around 84, 85, somewhere around in there.
So there was Christ Lutheran and there was
Methodist Church. Right, those two churches got added.
Eventually got.
Yeah, so they got in.
What was the typical profile of one of the first homeowners who bought into either of the three neighborhoods?
Well, it was small family, young children. We didn't have a high school or a junior high school out here yet. And the people that moved in, I have a very good friend, they still live out here today. Their son, they moved in '83, but their son had to be bused to Castle Rock every day to go to school. So it was a big deal.
I was going to ask you if they had older kids. Where did
they had
go?
older kids, but not many, because all we had was an elementary school here. Otherwise, you had to get...
So at that point, Douglas County had Douglas County High School, or
Douglas County,
maybe Ponderosa?
No, Ponderosa wasn't built yet. And they all went to Castle Rock High School.
Okay.
Right by Castle Rock, the old time Castle Rock down there. That they had to go there.
It's quite a long bus
I think it
ride.
was a 45-minute drive each way. The kids had to go. So it didn't really, until we built the high school, they didn't get a lot of older children here. They had them, don't get me wrong, but not that many. Most of it was elementary school kids.
Right.
Small, so young families is what I'm basically trying to say. Young, aggressive families, pioneers, I guess. Young pioneers.
I guess. Yeah, all good. So, what shall we talk about next?
Oh, I don't know. We could talk about just the atmosphere of the ranch back then. I remember being at a bunch of meetings, either with the homeowners association. Oh, we started the homeowner association, which was really huge, in July of '82.
So you had the activities committee that started in
October of '81.
Late '81 at this point, which planned all the activities.
Right.
And
then you had the Metro
neighborhood started developing.
Yeah, and the neighborhood started developing. We had all the fun stuff for the
So
kids
where
to
did
do.
where did the homeowners and the architectural control committees and all that stuff start coming in?
That was the HRCA, Highlands Ranch Community Association, and that started in July of '82. We had a meeting at Northridge. They had a little meeting room in there, and we met. And Joe Blake did the whole presentation, and we elected 3 delegates, and we elected 2 people to the board. I was appointed chair of the finance committee. Joe Blake asked me if I wanted to be chair of the finance committee, and that's when the homeowner association first started. And then the homeowner association controls all the rec centers, architectural control, how your yard looks, the color of paint they have on your home and all that kind of stuff. And the Metro District was already in place, and that was controlled. Mission Viejo and the HRCA, when it first started, had 3 members on it. My brother was on it very first. Joe Blake was on it. I think maybe Jeff Kappas was on Bill Hellstrom with the 3 Mission Viejo people on the very first board of directors of the HRCA. And then Barlow, I just saw his name in one of these Highlands Ranch reporters, and I forget the other person that was the 2 board of directors at the time. But Mission Viejo worked very closely with the homeowner association. I mean, they controlled everything. But boy, if we said, hey, homeowners need this, Mission Viejo was right there. They're 100% behind building a community for the people and a family community. But almost all the meetings I went to, I'd have Joe Blake say, remember, Gary, we're building a place to raise your family here. And that was my whole intent. That's why I did all the stuff for the activities committee and all that. All these activities and all the schools and getting this thing going, it's just a place to raise your family.
I understand that when they planned the community earlier than '81 and put together the development plan, as it was called, that the finance people convinced the management of Mission Viejo that it made more sense to build the roads initially at full capacity, even though they wouldn't be needed in that capacity for many years into the future as part of the build-out plan. And that's what happened.
Oh, when people used to come and visit me, and we had Broadway with 6 lanes, and there probably wasn't more than 100 people living in at the time. What are those roads doing there? But the combination, all your utilities are in the roads too. So the Metro District put them all in, and it's probably cheaper. And one thing about Mission Vale, it saved them during this downturn of the '80s, is that Philip Morris pumped a bunch of money in here. I mean, they weren't shy. They knew it was going to turn around again someday, and they just said, "Hey, we're going to go for it," and they had the money to do it. Philip Morris is a big-time operation.
The thing I found interesting was that the land associated with Highlands Ranch was about twice the size of the original Mission Viejo property in California.
Oh, that's a big deal.
And certainly was much bigger than Mission Viejo, Aurora.
Oh no, the Mission Viejo
Which was just 1 mile
just
square.
A small little deal.
That was 1 mile square.
This is 32 square miles.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
This was large.
Actually, for many, many years, the Villages down in Florida right now is the largest master plan community in the United States. But for many, many years, Highlands Ranch is the largest master plan community in the United States.
Right. And what do you consider to be a master plan community?
Well, I remember Joe Blake when I first started, and I was there 2 days, and Joe Blake came to my office and said, "Hey, let's go. We're going to the mansion." So we got out there, and he's driving down County Line Road, going up and down like this, and he's having me read these things, and I don't read well in the car. I'm getting sick to my stomach. Anyway, I can always remember going up and down that road, and we get to the mansion.
County Line was, most people who remember that as
just
a
a
real
2-lane. That was an adventure, up and down. And anyway, we get to the mansion. He pulls his car looking towards the north and pulls out these master plans. And Joe's got these beautiful blue eyes, and he's going, his eyes are like this, and he's showing me all this stuff on the master plan community. This, 3 high schools, and this going to happen over here and all that. And I kind of said to myself, I said, this guy's a dreamer. Stuff like this doesn't happen. Master plans, they're always changed to the economy and all this other kind of stuff. This guy's a dreamer. And I just told him this the other day. I had lunch with him, dinner with him a few months back. And he's going on and on about all this stuff. And to the most part, I would bet 95% of Highlands Ranch is followed the master plan, which is but that's the credibility of the people that work for Mission Viejo Company and their reputation with the homeowners and what they wanted to build here. You couldn't ask for a better developer. They had the money, they had character. I guess the character is the name of the game. Trust. Everybody, they just did everything they could to help the people here. And they did it not because, I don't think they did it for the monetary value. I think they just wanted to build a place that, with a reputation.
Yeah. I understand that you weren't here quite at the time, but your brother was. But at the time this was announced and eventually Mission Viejo got control of the property, there were a lot of people who were against or fearful of the unknown of this large development of a California-based company coming up here and building something that would be large and certainly very different than had been built in the area before.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate?
That's true. Douglas County was just a cattle town for the most part.
Rural county.
Right when the first time I had to go and get my license plate in Castle Rock, I felt like I just drove back to the 50s. This is 1980, a little old Ford dealership. I had to go and they had to get the registration off, and there's all cattle ranches in there around. There was nothing around here. They had 2 police cars for all of Douglas County. There was nothing going on, and so the people were a little afraid. Tweet Kimball, one of them. Tweet Kimball, Joe Teffer probably tells you all this, but she was she was the deciding factor. She ran Douglas County at the time. And
I hear Bill Duncan's name quite a bit too.
Yeah, Bill Duncan was the other guy, but Tweet Kimball
Teffer had very interesting things to say about Bill Duncan. Duncan.
Yeah. But
he said he was tough.
No, that's tough, and so was Tweet Kimball. Was no run over lady. I mean, she was a tough lady too. But I heard the story in a way. Phil Riley was sitting next to Tweet Kimball at a luncheon. And on a piece of paper, he showed where the development of Highlands Ranch was compared to the rest of the community, or the rest of the land they own. And Tweet Kimball's property is up here in this land that's the Greenbelt area. And she said, well, if you keep that development down here, it's okay. And actually, on that napkin, on that drawing, is where Tweet Kimball agreed that go ahead with Highlands Ranch.
And that there would be a backcountry buffer between her property and the development property.
That was on a napkin.
Interesting.
That was Phil Riley. And Phil Riley,
Yeah.
you might know, was the president of the
Sure.
Trail Company.
Sure.
Great guy, too. All the people, and then there was a guy by the name of Kevin Murphy, and his dad was the head guy for Philip Morris Company. And Kevin Murphy's dad developed light beer back in Milwaukee. So Kevin Murphy, who he was a neighbor of mine, he was one of the first residents, too. His dad was the chairman of the board or senior executive, very high up, but he was in charge of Mission Viejo, the division of Mission Viejo in Philip Morris. And his son lived out here, and Phil Riley's son lived out here. He had the very first phone number was 791-2001, and that was Phil Riley's son. He had one of the first houses in here, too. He lived in Bayfield.
You're aware that the Highlands Ranch Historical Society published a book here a couple of years ago, whatever. David Johnston, one of our board members, took the lead in developing that. So when the book was finally published, of which that's a long process, and we committed to buying a few thousand, however many we did, Paul was involved in that. At this point, we thought we would send a copy to Jim Teffer. And he was very thankful for getting one. He said, but I think you should also send one to Phil Riley. So we did. We did at this point, even though we don't know Phil as well as we know Jim, because Jim's here and Phil's not at this point. But Phil sent us a very nice thank you and thought that the book was a good representation of the actual history and appreciated the old pictures, the new pictures of what the ranch has become at this point. But Phil was very complimentary of our efforts there. And I think he's pretty happy with the way the community turned out.
I don't know who wouldn't be happy. I mean, it was one of the Highlands Ranch was rated, Money magazine a few years back, one of the best places to live in the United States for a town of our size.
As well as Douglas County.
Douglas County, and it just doesn't get any better. The views, the piece of land. I heard the story many a time that Phil Riley came out here. Phil Riley is the one that bought the land, and Phil Riley came out here in '77 or something like that, and got a hold of most likely Kevin Murphy's dad at Mission Viejo Company. At Philip Morris. Said, I just found the most beautiful piece of land in the United States, and send me the money for the down payment on it. And 2 days later, he got the down payment. And then they had a contingency. They had to put the plan. It was all contingent on them putting the master plan and getting it approved and all that. Right. And so he started it. But he said, I just found the most beautiful piece of land in the United States. This is the guy that's coming from Mission Viejo, California, to develop that. So that's a special comment.
Yeah, this was a bigger property.
They had a good plate to start with.
Yeah, it was about twice the size, as we understand, of what they had developed in California.
Yeah.
So they were taking
and they had the history
of risk.
And they had the history of California of how to develop. So they came out here, and like I said, the activities committee, all the stuff with community and all that. And it's the same package that proved successful in California.
Yeah. Different topic would be C470. Do you have any color on how that got built or when it got built? Because that was
there's a couple deals on C470. What happened is Mission Viejo, when they first started the ranch, knew that was vital. The county line you wouldn't have any homes built here if it wasn't for just county line. So they had to have the freeway. So they actually dedicated that piece of land. I heard the story a couple of different times. Dedicated that piece of land to CDOT, and then Governor Lamb put the golden spike in it. So we're not building that road. It's going to just create development. We don't want that. And so they put the golden spike in it. And I think it was around 1984, 83 or something like that. The contract that they had to give the land to CDOT expired. And it was 4 months later, maybe a little different. Joe Blake knows the total detail on that. A couple months later, CDOT came to Mission Viejo Company and said, we're going to put the freeway in. You're still going to give us that land. And I said, nope. That expired 4 months ago. And they weren't happy that it expired without them saying they wanted the road. But the bottom line is they got $10 million. They paid $32 million for the property. But they paid $10 million for the right-of-way for C470. And then they put the road in my house was affected because I could hear the road. I'm only 5 houses from C470 down on Broadway, and I'm 5 houses down from Dad Clark. And so what happened is that they put the road in. Took a couple years to build, obviously, and it stopped at Ken Carroll in the very beginning. They didn't build the rest of it until a few years later. And so the road opened up, and the day it opened up, they had a marathon race. People ran down to Ken Carroll and back, and that was the grand opening of the road. So that's the story behind C470. And without C470, Highlands Ranch wouldn't be here today to the size it is today. That was huge.
I agree. That's good. Paul, do you have any questions?
I've just enjoyed listening to what you guys are talking about. I didn't be thinking about what to ask.
Gary, what else would you like to share about the early days?
Well, the early days, the school system, that was huge in developing a downtown community to raise your children. A guy by the name of O'Connell, superintendent of schools,
Rick
came in.
O'Connell.
Yeah.
Long
And then
time.
McFarland was very
Long-time
active.
supervisor.
Yeah.
Superintendent.
He put together the plans to build all the schools. We got the school bond passed and whatever. So when we started building the schools, that really changed the atmosphere. We had the rec centers, the Highlands Ranch Rec Center. We had Northridge. It was really a nice rec center. We had financially, it was in good shape because of home mission deal and whatever. But the schools were really keen to building a place to raise your community. Almost everybody that moved in the ranch at the time had children, school-age children. And so there was a couple of people, the Northridge School, when it first started in October, was like a one-room schoolhouse. They only had something like, in October, something like 20.
Designed for 450.
Yeah, so they had, what happened is they only had a couple classrooms the first year. And the first, second, kindergarten, first and second grade were all in one classroom. I think they had 3 classrooms going on when it first opened up, to kind of give you an idea. And then they started the PTA. Melanie Worley was involved in the first PTA. She ended up being county commissioner, and another one that started the PTA was Kim Herskovitz.
What's who?
Kim Herskovitz.
Okay.
And Kim Stark's her name today. They were the first people, and they started up they had children in it, and they started up the PTA, which is still active today. But the school system, without question, I think even today, Douglas County is recognized as one of the best school systems in the United States. I think Rock Creek, to kind of give you an example, was the 8th best high school in the United States a couple of years ago. I'm not sure what it is today. I don't follow schools like they did, but the school system, what they put together here is really something. I remember we went out. I think I was on the board of directors of the HRCA after I became a delegate. I was head of the finance committee for 12 years. I was on that till '92, from '82, and then I was a delegate. Then I was on the HRCA board for a couple years, and so I got invited to take the first shovel of dirt at the new high school, and Joe Blake and I are out there. It was a spring day. Yeah, he had a huge
This is what
rainstorm.
became Highlands Ranch High School.
Highlands Ranch High School. They had a little trailer out there, and they had a picture of. They had a mock-up of it in this old, construction trailer. We're all in there having a little party, and it rained while we were in there, so they had to get tow trucks to tow all the cars out. So Joe Blake and I think Pam Ellen and a couple other people, Jim Teffer most likely was there, took the first shovel of dirt for the new high school. And that was a beautiful high school. I remember walking through that when it first opened. They did a beautiful job. O'Connell. He did a good job building these schools. People thought he had a little bit of an ego, but the bottom line is he built quality, and today they're still there. They're still beautiful schools. I think they had mahogany windows in this high school. I go, wow, that's really something. but they're first class packages. I drive by them all the time today when I go golfing over at the Links Golf Course over there, and it's a nice package.
Well, the high school is nothing without a road to get there.
No, they had to put in the roads.
So
The
they had
roads
to
started
build
coming. The
Lincoln.
Metro District put in all the roads, as you know.
So they
Then
had
we
to
turned them
build, they had to
over.
build Lincoln to get
Yeah.
to the high school.
And Lincoln, when they first opened it up, did not put it. They only put it 2 lanes because they had to open up Lincoln to get the kids from Lone Tree over. It wasn't Lone Tree back then; it was just unincorporated Douglas County. But they had Lincoln for many years. It's just they had a little area there between Lone Tree and Highlands Ranch. They left that a 2-lane road for many years, and they had a huge problem when it first opened up because everybody was hitting deer. I remember playing golf at the Links Golf Course in the 80s. And the Links Golf Course opened up in '85. They had a We only had opened
And
up
Glen
9
Eagles
holes.
Village along with it?
What's that? And the village.
Glen Eagles Village.
Yeah, Glen
along
Eagles
with it.
opened up right around the same time.
Yeah.
And then the only big change they had in the master plan, Palomino Park, which was the apartments there today, or the condos, that was going to be a big office complex like Inverness.
I heard that.
Yeah, and then the market was just never here for the office complex type stuff. So they sold that off to Palomino Park. But yeah, they opened up in '85. And I remember they had a shotgun start. I went to the grand opening. I was golfing with Art Cook, as a matter of fact. Art Cook shows up. He wasn't a golfer, so he shows up with some golf clubs and a hefty garbage bag.
Okay.
But anyway, they had the first 9 holes, and we had the grand opening at the golf course with a shotgun start. Kind of fun.
There you go.
Ah,
That's good.
But so the schools are the big deal. Building the community, the parks, the recs, the kids, the activities for the kids to do, and even still today, it's one of the best places in Highland, in the country to raise your family. And that was always the goal of Mission Viejo Company, to a place to raise your family. Although now there's a lot more emphasis on stuff for the older people.
Communities change.
The communities change over the years. But it was a great place. The
We've
kids
all
there
gotten
stuff.
older. There's a higher percentage of seniors here, so there's more emphasis on
Yeah.
senior clubs and senior activities now.
So it was a big deal. So the ranch, it developed as planned. Mission Vale and Philip Morris did a great job putting it all together. Philip Morris, they did not squibble and if you needed a couple dollars to do this and that. Whenever you did something at the Highlands Ranch and the different meetings I was at, because I was on the board of directors of Metro District for 8 years too, and they put in all the parks and they run the parks and all the rest of the stuff. And every time you go and do something, it's a first class deal. And Joe Blake was a lot behind that, and same with Teffer. And if you're going to do something, I guess the old saying, if you're going to do something, do it right. And that was Highlands Ranch. If you're going to do something, don't cut corners and that's the whole idea of having cement in the roads. Very few communities would ever want to put that money into putting that cement into the roads. But it's in our ordinances here that all major roadways have to be cement. And that's why C-470 for the longest time was cement. And it's being cement again today because that's part of Highlands Ranch. So it was all first class all the way. And the homeowners, they got the benefit of that, especially in the 80s. It was like a country club out here. It had all this stuff out here for all these people, and it wasn't very crowded. And so you can just go to the rec center and didn't have to worry about standing in line for anything. And all the activities really brought the community together. We go to these July 4th, and my kids are playing with other kids, and they know they're all having fun. And the sports programs, I was involved in the sports program, first-class sports programs all along the line. We went with Douglas County Soccer, which is huge. We went with, for baseball, we went with the Warriors League over here. And then the Metro District put together the football program. So they've always had great sports programs here, and some really good teams over the years too. But I remember coaching back in the early 80s, and the very first soccer team I coached, there wasn't enough boys on it, if you can believe this. My son was in the first grade, maybe the second grade. They couldn't find anybody to coach the team, so they came to me, and I didn't know anything about soccer. But there was not enough boys on the team. Northridge is the only school built here. So I had 4 girls and 8 guys on the team. And just at the last historical committee last week, I met the parents of one of the girls that are on my soccer team. And they were there and we were talking about it. There wasn't enough boys to be on the very first team. But the sports programs we put together here over the years are really special. It was, the Heritage Park, they put that together. And Mission Viejo, and Philip Morris, they chipped in money when you needed to do these things, There wasn't enough money out here to build some of these things. And they said, well, no, we want to do it right. Let's go ahead and do that. So, that was huge. So, as far as Highlands Ranch, the whole thing that we want to build a place to raise your family, they did it, the best of their ability, and it turned out, in my opinion, exactly the way it should be.
But do you have any color on the eventual sale of the undeveloped properties from Mission Viejo to Shea?
Shea's done a great job, and a lot of the people at Shea are still the old people I knew. A lot of people at Shea are still the people that were there in the 80s when I was at Mission Viejo Company. Shea came in and did a tremendous job. Actually, they did a favor. The the houses at the time, we were selling houses to different builders. The quality wasn't there, and everybody could see the difference in the quality between a Mission Viejo home and some of the other builders that they're allowing into the ranch. But they were selling lots and we're building homes, so everybody's happy. And the first thing Shea did when they came in is they wanted to change that. They took over all the building. They kicked most of the other builders out, and they built a really good product. And they, you can see it today. It's stuff that Shea's done. Shea's been a great developer too. Another deep pocket people. And you never lost the continuity because they hired all the people from Mission Viejo Company. They took over the whole operation. So anybody that was a Mission Viejo Company when Shea came in had a job, and they're still there today. Most of the people at Shea Homes are ex-Mission Viejo people. And they just did a tremendous job. They just kept continuing the initial goal of what they're going to build.
Good. Okay, well, I think we're out of time here.
Okay.
We'll give you the last word.
Well,
Anything you'd like to say?
Now, it's been a fun ride living here in Highlands Ranch. I look at my lifestyle and I say, wow, that kind of show I talk about it sometimes, but what my children enjoyed.
Yeah. Your daughter still live here?
No, my daughter lives in Walsh Park. My son lives in City Park. But what they enjoyed and the way they're raised and how they turned out, a lot of it had to do with where we lived, their friends and the community. And that's all because of Shea Homes and Mission Viejo Company and those people. There was a lot to that. The school, the education my kids got when they went to college, they went to CU, along with not only my kids, but the other kids from Highlands Ranch. My son told me, boy, Dad, we're head over heels. Some of the other kids at CU from Colorado here as far as what we learned in high school. And so that whole education system and whatever developed some very good kids were developed in Highlands Ranch because of the vision of Mission Viejo Company.
Yep. Good.
So,
okay, well, on behalf of the Historical Society and Paul McKeegan and myself, we wanted to thank you for sharing your thoughts today.
well, thank you for letting me share them because
Yeah.
it's huge. I look at all these old reporters here and that, and I go, wow, there is a real good story here.
Been a trip. Yeah, so thanks again.
Yeah.